Hi, I'm Ana Patrice. I'm a teacher with Ukraine Volunteer Teachers. I'm also Miss Maryland Director's Choice from East Coast USA pageants. Today I'd like to read you a story. This is about a princess. I think she's cute. The Tossy Turny Princess and the Pesky Pea. A fairy tale to help you fall asleep. Words by Susan Verde and pictures by J. Fleck. Once upon a time there was a princess who loved to sleep. That might be me. It helped that her bed was piled high with the softest mattresses and the coziest blankets and the fluffiest pillows. But what the princess loved most about sleeping was that it gave her the energy she needed to go through her day with joy and attention. There she is. This was important because the princess had a very busy schedule. Her first stop in the morning was always the garden. She loved to help the royal gardener pull weeds, smell flowers, and watch tiny creatures scuttle around the grass. And of course, try new vegetables. Her favorites were the peas. Then she visited the royal chef in the kitchen. The royal chef always let the princess help her with the baking and cooking. The princess was a pro at whisking eggs and tasting sweet desserts. Next, the princess stopped by the library. I like libraries because there's lots of books. The royal librarians knew the perfect book to share with her. Sometimes he read out loud and the princess hung on to every word, asking questions when she didn't understand. There she is at the library. And when the sun set, the princess visited the royal astronomer. Together they climbed the highest tree to get a look at stars in the night sky. The astronomer would tell her about the planets, the constellations, and the meaning behind each flickering light. Kind of like Miss Amy's space class, right, middle schoolers? At the end of such a long and wonderful day, you can imagine that the princess was ready to sleep so she could do it all again in the morning. But tonight there was a problem. You see, earlier in the day, while the princess was out, the prince was poking around her room to borrow his favorite book of fairy tales. I like a prince that likes fairy tales. At the same time, he was eating his lunch, a big bowl of fresh pea soup. Suddenly, one of the big fresh peas rolled off his spoon and fell right in between the princess's mattresses. Oh no! The prince tried to reach it, but it had rolled too far in, so he left the pea, figuring the princess would never notice anyway. Oh, how he was wrong. That night, the princess got ready for bed, excited to hit the hay. She climbed atop her many mattresses, got under her soft sheets and cozy blankets, and laid her head on the fluffy pillow. There she is. She looks all comfy. But she didn't feel right. She felt uneven, out of sorts, off balance, and something was poking her. She tossed and turned and tried to get comfortable, but nothing was working. So she flipped and fluffed and searched for whatever it was that was keeping her awake, but she found nothing. that Pea was hidden too well. Now the princess was wide awake, and she stayed that way all night long. She was probably very tired. The next day, nothing went right. The princess was cranky and clumsy, and she found herself dozing off in all sorts of places. Look at her. Down here, she's in the wheelbarrow. She's fallen asleep in the wheelbarrow. She's probably helping the gardener then. That night was even worse. Her head was filled with worries. What if she felt the same thing poking her? What if she was up all night? What if she couldn't bake or garden or do any of the things she loved because she was too tired? What if she could never sleep again? And once more, she was up all night. The next morning, she wearily went to visit the garden and promptly laid her head on the cool soil. The royal gardener asked, "What's wrong, Princess? I can't seem to fall asleep at night." "You know," he replied, "when I have trouble sleeping, I make my body into the shape of the lizards I see in the garden. That always makes me sleepy." In the kitchen, the princess dozed off while she was in the middle of whisking some delicious icing. The royal chef asked, "What's wrong, Princess?" "I can't seem to fall asleep at night. You know," she replied, "when I have trouble sleeping, I breathe in and out slowly through my nose, like I'm smelling the most delicious cookies coming out of the oven. That gets my energy out, and it makes me sleepy." Would make me hungry for cookies. The princess managed to get herself to the library, but she fell asleep with her face in a book. "What's wrong, Princess?" asked the royal librarian. "I can't seem to fall asleep at night. You know," he replied, "when I have trouble sleeping, I flip onto my back, put my legs up against the bookshelves like this, and it makes me very drowsy." By the time she reached the climbing tree, the prince was so exhausted, she could only sit and lean against it. There she is. The royal astronomer sat on the ground next to her. "It seems you're having trouble sleeping, Princess." "When that happens to me, I like to lie down. I let my whole body relax, and I look up at the sky. Then I place each of my worries on a star, until with every sparkle they disappear. This helps my mind get quiet to make room for dreams." I like that idea, putting all of your worries onto a star before you go to bed. That night, when the princess found herself wide awake once again, she remembered what her royal friends had shared that day. It seemed they all had trouble sleeping sometimes. It felt a little better to know she wasn't the only one. And they each did something special that helped. The princess thought that maybe if she did what they did, it might help too. So she got out of bed and she stretched like the lizards in the garden until her legs felt longer and the wiggles started to leave her body. This made the princess feel calmer and a little more still. Next, the princess breathed in deeply through her nose, pretending to smell her favorite cookies like the royal chef. Soon she was feeling warm and peaceful. Then, thinking of the librarian, the princess laid down on her back and leaned her legs up against the wall. It was so nice, she began to feel heavy and drowsy. Soon the princess was sleepy enough to get into her bed. She climbed to the top of her stack of soft mattresses, got under her cozy blankets, and put her head on her fluffy pillow. She waited for that uncomfortable feeling to come back, but surprisingly, her body felt good and relaxed. It was her mind that was still filled with worries. What if she still couldn't sleep? What if she was too tired the next day? What if She doesn't look very happy, does she? Then the princess remembered what the astronomer had told her. Looking out her window, she saw the stars twinkling in the dark. She named all of her worries and sent each one to a star. With every twinkle, she imagined her worries disappearing into the sky. Before she knew it, the princess was sound asleep. The next morning, the princess awoke, fresh-faced and full of energy. She couldn't wait to visit her friends and tell them how they'd helped her. Look, she's happy now. But as she climbed down from her bed, a large pea rolled out from between her mattress and fell to the floor. Look. The prince, who'd come to return her book, was standing in the doorway with a sheepish grin. Oops, I think that was mine. But the princess wasn't angry. In fact, she realized it was the pea that had kept her awake. It was also the pea that, along with her royal friends, had helped her to learn how to fall asleep, even when she didn't think she could. The princess gently picked up the pea and placed it in a very special spot right next to her bed. When she saw it each night, she would remember that even when things didn't feel right, when her mind was worrying and her body was wiggling, she knew just what to do. That night, in celebration and in thanks, the princess threw a royal pajama party. Everyone practiced their nighttime poses and let go of all their worries. And the princess served each guest a big bowl of fresh pea soup. I love this book. This is adorable. The Tossy Turny Princess and the Pesky Pea. I hope you enjoyed our book today.